Today's lesson is The Great Stone Face. Hi, everybody. My name is Roger.
And I'm Helen.
And for this month, we're going to be talking about a work of literature. It's actually a story by Nathaniel Hawthorne, a famous American writer. And this story was published way back in 1850. Even though it's an old story, it can be enjoyed by modern audiences.
That's right. This story is about a geological formation or a body of rock that has the appearance of a man's face, that everyone is fascinated when they see it. Now, it's said that the story is connected to a real-life geological formation known as the Old Man of the Mountain, which is located in the state of New Hampshire. And it was very well known as a tourist attraction until it crumbled around 20 years ago. So some say that the Great Stone Face in the story is based on the Old Man of the Mountain, since Hawthorne is from Massachusetts, and Massachusetts is very close to New Hampshire.
Right, there are eastern states in the USA. They're in New England, basically. And yes, this is about a rock formation that looks like a big stone face. So let's find out what this story is all about. Let's begin our story, our lesson for today, by reading the first part. We'll read it to you, and then we'll come back to talk about it.
The Great Stone Face.
Towering over the valley, the Great Stone Face had been carved from the rocks of the mountain by Mother Nature herself, and gazed with a warm, wise expression over the valley's residents. When seen from a distance, it appeared to have a broad, handsome forehead, a noble nose, and wide lips parted as if it were shouting out words of welcome.
大家好，第一部分我们可以看到单字 carve， 这个字是动词，指的是雕刻、刻写或是切下。例如 My grandfather carved this bird from a piece of wood. 我的祖父用一块木头雕刻出这只鸟。或者 Randy carved his name into his desk when the teacher wasn't looking. 趁老师不注意时 Randy 把自己的名字刻在桌子上。另外这个字去掉字尾 e 加上 ing 就会变成名词 carving， 意思是雕刻品或是雕刻图案。举例来说 In the museum there is a stone carving of the famous painter. 在那个博物馆内有著名画家的石雕。也可以说 Carvings of flowers decorate the sides of the wooden bookcase. 这个木头书柜的侧边装饰着雕花。接着我们看到动词 gaze， 它的意思是凝视或是注视。举例来说Felix spent the night gazing at the stars. Felix 晚上都在看星星。又或者说 Mel gazed into the distance to see if there were any taxis approaching. Mel 凝视着远方，看看有没有计程车接近。
So here is how the story begins. Towering over the valley, the Great Stone Face had been carved from the rocks of the mountain by Mother Nature herself, and gazed with a warm, wise expression over the valley's residents. Now, the first thing we know about the Great Stone Face is that it towers over the valley. When something towers over something else, it means that it is much taller than that other thing, so much taller that it looks over the second thing. So I can say as an example that my brother, who is 190 centimeters tall, towers over me.
Indeed, that is quite tall. I'm almost that tall myself, but not quite. But in any case, yes, if something's really high or tall compared to what's around it, we do use this term towering over. We could say Taipei 101 towers over Taipei, or Mount Fuji in Japan towers over the surrounding countryside. And in this particular case, we've got the Great Stone Face, and it had been carved from the rocks of the mountain by Mother Nature herself. So, of course, rocks form, and then they have erosion over thousands, if not millions of years, and then we get these various shapes in those rocks. So, yes, indeed, the Great Stone Face had been carved from the rocks by Mother Nature herself. Mother Nature just refers to the natural world. We often refer to that as female. And indeed, this does happen sometimes, especially with sandstone. It's a softer rock and can be easily formed through erosion, like Monument Valley in Arizona and Utah. Those structures were carved by Mother Nature over thousands of years.
Right, and to carve just means to make something by cutting it. Usually cutting something from stone, wood, or another hard material. You can also carve a pumpkin and make a jack-o'-lantern. That's another case of carving something. But in any case, this great stone face had a particular expression. It gazed with a warm, wise expression over the valley's residents. When a person gazes at you, that person is looking at you for a long time, and it's usually in a kind of gentle and kind way. So they're not staring at you like they're threatening you. When a baby gazes at you or a puppy gazes at you, they're doing it in a loving, kind way.
Right, and they're looking at you, they're surprised, they like you, or they're thinking about something. You might gaze at somebody if they're putting on a good show and you think it's entertaining. And here the great stone face gazed over the valley with a warm and wise expression, so people who lived in the valley could see that rock every day. And when seen from a distance, it appeared to have a broad, handsome forehead, a noble nose, and wide lips parted as if it were shouting out words of welcome. So, yes, indeed, if you look up close, maybe it just looks like a big rock. But if you look at it from a distance, or if you see it from far away, then it looks like an actual face. It has a broad and handsome forehead. The forehead, of course, is the area of your head above your eyes. This is a forehead that is very special. It's broad, which means it's very wide, and it's handsome too. You would expect a handsome man to have such a forehead. It's also got a noble nose, like the nose a king may have, and it also has wide lips that are parted. It's like the mouth is open, as if the mouth was shouting out words of welcome. Welcome to the valley. I'm the great stone face, and you're welcome here.
Right. The word noble here refers to a person or a position that is of the upper class. But when you talk about a noble nose, you can't really describe it physically. You can't say whether the nose was wide or narrow, long or short. It depends on what noble means in a particular culture. But here it just means that the nose belonged to somebody who seemed like they were from an upper part of society, somebody who was intelligent, from a good family, belonging to those qualities.
Exactly. So there's a description of the great stone face, and now we're going to start a story about that great stone face. Let's move on now to the second part of our lesson and listen.
As a child growing up in the valley, Ernest had always been fascinated by the face and the legend associated with it. According to his mother, someone born in the valley would one day bear the face of the mountain and, if recognized, would become a new American hero. Ernest was obsessed with finding this person, but no one he ever saw quite fit the description. Nevertheless, Ernest's obsession with the wise, kind face reminded him daily to be wise and kind in his own life.
第二部分我们看到单字 fascinate， 这个字是动词，指的是使着迷或是使迷住。例如Nora majored in Japanese because she is fascinated by Japanese culture. Nora 主修日文是因为她对日本文化着迷。或是 Roy has been fascinated by dinosaurs ever since he was a little boy. Roy 从小就对恐龙深深着迷。另外补充这个字的名词 fascination， F-A-S-C-I-N-A-T-I-O-N fascination， 意思是迷恋、陶醉或是魅力。举例来说Richard's fascination with mathematics led him to become a math teacher. Richard 对数学的迷恋使他成为一名数学老师。或者我们可以说 Patty has a fascination with European history, so she spends a lot of time reading at the library. Patty 对欧洲历史很着迷，所以她花很多时间在图书馆里阅读。 再来我们看到单字 legend， 这个字是名词，意思是传说、传奇人物或是传说故事。例如 Legend has it that a giant monster lived in this forest hundreds of years ago. 传说数百年前这片森林里住着一只巨大的怪物。或是 Rick is a legend at the local bowling alley. Rick 在本地的保龄球馆是个传奇人物。另外在这个字的字尾加上 ary 就会变成形容词 legendary， 意思是享有盛名的或是传奇的。例如The legendary film star is remembered for his dashing good looks. 那名传奇性电影明星的帅气长相让人难忘。又或者是 The legendary jazz musician played a string of sold-out shows at a local club. 那位传奇爵士乐手在当地俱乐部做了一连串的卖座演出。最后我们看到副词 nevertheless， 指的是然而或是不过。例如 I've had a great time on my trip.Nevertheless, I'm ready to go back to work. 我在旅行中玩得很开心，然而我已经准备好要回去上班了。或者我们可以说 The movie wasn't very original, but I enjoyed it nevertheless. 这部电影不是很有创意，但我仍然喜欢它。
So now we're going to talk about somebody who lives very close to the Great Stone Face. And this person is Ernest. As a child growing up in the valley, Ernest had always been fascinated by the face and the legend associated with it. So Ernest grew up in that area near the Great Stone Face, and he had always been fascinated by the face. When you're fascinated by something, you're very interested or very attracted by that thing. For instance, a lot of astronauts were fascinated by life in space or by the planets when they were children, and then they grew up to become astronauts. Here, Ernest was always fascinated by this rock formation and the legend associated with it.
Right. This reminds me of when I was in college. I was fascinated by the music of Pink Floyd. I had all their albums. I listened to them every day. But now when I think back, I wonder, what was I thinking? That music can be very depressing sometimes. But in this particular case, Ernest had always been fascinated by that face. He saw that face. He thought it was really cool. And he was also fascinated by the legend that was associated with that face. A legend is a story that has been passed down from generation to generation. And of course, if you have a rock formation like that, people are going to come up with stories concerning that structure. And of course, this is a legend here, a story about the rock face in the shape of someone's face. And yeah, Ernest thought, I really like that story. I'm fascinated by it. I want to learn more about it.
Yes, and many cultures have their own legends. For instance, there is the legend of Bigfoot, which is a legend about this huge hairy creature that lives in the woods. And we also have the legend of the Monkey King, so that's another famous legend. Now, in this particular case, according to his mother, or Ernest's mother, someone born in the valley would one day bear the face of the mountain, and if recognized, would become a new American hero. So according to Ernest's mother, a person will one day come along and this person will have the same facial features as the Great Stone Face. And if other people recognize that this person looks like the Great Stone Face, then this person will become a new American hero.
Indeed. So when Ernest was young, he probably heard someone say there was a story associated with the Great Stone Face. So he asked his mother about it. Mom, what's that legend about? And she told him that, well, someday, Sonny, someone in the valley will be born and they will have the face of the mountain. And if somebody recognizes that person, if they say, hey, you look just like that face on the mountain, well, then that person will become a new American hero. They will save the world. And Ernest was obsessed with finding this person, but no one he ever saw quite fit the description. So if you're obsessed with something, you're more than fascinated by something. You just think about that thing all the time. You can't think of anything else. I remember way back in the past when one of the Spider-Man movies came out, a friend of mine was obsessed with that movie. That's all he talked about for weeks and weeks. I got sick of hearing about it. I thought, it's a good movie, yeah, but you shouldn't be talking about it so long. It's really not that a big deal.
Right. So Ernest was obsessed with finding who this person was that would resemble, that would look like the Great Stone Face. And he came across a lot of people, saw a lot of people, but he wasn't able to find anyone who fit the description. Nevertheless, Ernest's obsession with the wise, kind face reminded him daily to be wise and kind in his own life. So the word nevertheless is another way of saying still. It means despite this fact. It's a transition word that is very useful for saying that something that comes later is kind of the opposite of what came before. So I could say, I'm not hungry. Nevertheless, I will eat something now because I don't know if I will have time to eat later.
Okay, or maybe you might hear your boss say, well, last year we didn't make very much money in the company, but nevertheless, you're all still going to get your standard year-end bonus. So in this particular case, yes, he couldn't find anybody who fit the description of the mountain. He was looking, gee, do you have the same face as the mountain? No, you don't. So he was probably kind of frustrated there, but nevertheless, still, despite that frustration, Ernest's obsession with the wise, kind face reminded him daily to be wise and kind in his own life. So even though he couldn't find the person who matched the description of the Great Stone Face, he still realized that it's a good idea to be kind and nice to other people, and also to be wise, to know about how life works and to be able to teach other people, especially younger people, about what you know and how to survive in the world. Okay, that brings us to the end of the second part of our lesson for today. Let's move on now to the third part.
Over time, talk of the legend spread from the valley to the far reaches of the country, and some who heard it believed they might actually be the hero foretold. One by one, they arrived to try their luck, and one by one, Ernest judged them.
So in the last part, we saw that Ernest was obsessed with looking for someone, with the person who would come along and have the same face as the Great Stone Face. Now, over time, talk of the legend spread from the valley to the far reaches of the country, and some who heard it believed they might actually be the hero foretold. So before, this legend was only famous in the valley. Only people in the valley knew about this legend. But then talk of the legend, or rumors about it, spread from the valley to the far reaches of the country. So it spread to far places far away within the country, but far away from the valley. And people who heard about this legend thought, maybe I'm the one. I'm going to be the new American hero. Maybe I resemble this Great Stone Face. And they hoped that they would be the new hero and that they would be the hero foretold.
Foretold, of course, means somebody said it ahead of time as if they had some special information or maybe a message from God. If you're Christian, for example, maybe you heard it foretold that there would be the second coming of Christ very soon. It's been foretold in the Bible. The Bible says that this is going to happen in the future. But here, of course, lots of people heard about this legend and they thought, I might actually be that person. Of course, this story went out to the far reaches of the country, beyond New Hampshire and beyond New England. It spread east across Pennsylvania and Ohio and Indiana and Illinois and Iowa and Nebraska, all the way to the West Coast, and then probably all the way up across Canada to Alaska, and then down to Mexico to Coahuila or Zacatecas or Durango or places like that. Everybody learned about this thing, and they wanted to come there and say, hey, I'm the person who looks like that stone face. I will be the great American hero.
Yes, and one by one they arrived to try their luck, and one by one Ernest judged them. So they came one by one, which means a steady flow of people kept arriving at the valley, and they went there to try their luck. They thought they might be lucky enough to be chosen, to be recognized as the new American hero because they look like the Great Stone Face. However, Ernest judged them. So maybe because he was so obsessed with this rock formation and he knew so much about the legend and he was so interested that he became the one to judge whether these people who came actually looked like the rock formation.
Yep, he was the expert, so he was the one who could judge them. He would look them over and he would think, well, it's close, but no cigar. You don't look like the Great Stone Face there. Nice try, better luck next time. And of course, they all tried their luck. And who wouldn't want to be the next great American hero? You could be very, very famous and you can make a lot of money and go anywhere you want and have all sorts of friends, etc., etc. But hey, this boy Ernest is the expert. He knows all about this Great Stone Face, and he's the one to judge those people. I guess he has the final say, doesn't he?
I guess so, because he is the expert and he was so obsessed with it that he may have spent hours and hours and days staring at the face, trying to figure out its qualities, and then that made him an expert.
It did, and this story will continue next time. The story's not over yet, so please join us then. But before we finish our lesson, we'd like to hear from Hanny.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文第一部分描述了人面巨石，那最后一句写到说，从远处看时，它似乎有着宽广而俊俏的额头，好看的鼻子，而宽阔的嘴唇张开着，仿佛在大声喊着欢迎的话语。文中它这边是用 as if it were shouting out words of welcome 去表达说仿佛在大声喊着欢迎的话语。这边我们就是要补充 as if 跟 as though 的用法。 as if 或者是 as though 它是引导副词子句，可以表达仿佛怎么样，如同怎么样。那它们后面接的子句可以用直说法或者是假设法。好，我们就先来看，在描述事实或者是描述可能为真的情况时，子句是用直说法，也就是子句里面它的时态是照正常变化的。假设你看到朋友眼睛红红的，眼眶泛泪，讲话还有鼻音，这时候我们可能会说 What's wrong? You look as if you've been crying. 怎么啦？你看起来好像在哭那这件事情有可能是事实哦，所以我们不是用假设语气去表达。好，在第二个情况就是说，你在描述跟事实相反的情况，或是在表达某个假设情况时，子句是用假设法。像如果是描述跟现在事实相反的情况时，子句里面动词你就会用到过去式。如果你要用 be 动词表达则一律用 were， 那它的句型就会是as if 或者是 as though 主词加上过去式动词或是 were 点点点。举例来说 Amy's ex-boyfriend talks to her as if they were still together. Amy 的前男友对她讲话的样子仿佛他们还在一起呢，但事实上他们已经分开了，所以这边子句是用假设法，我们说 as if they were still together， 这个 be 动词是用 were 去表达。好，那我们接着看到课文第三部分最后一句，他说 One by one, they arrived to try their luck. 好，这边他说他们一个接着一个来碰运气，这边看到两个重点。第一个重点是 one by one， 它表示一个接着一个。好，那么介系词 by 在这边就表示事情逐渐产生变化，也就是逐一逐个怎么样怎么样的意思。我们就常常用名词 by 名词去构成副词片语。其他常见的说法还有 word by word， 就是逐字地，一个字又一个字地。day by day 逐日地，一天又一天地。step by step 逐步地，一步一步地，或者是 little by little 可以表达逐渐地，一点一点地。举例来说 little by little he grew fond of the girl， 他逐渐喜欢上那个女孩，一点一点喜欢上她。好，再我们看到下一个重点是 try one's luck， 是指试试运气，碰运气。那这个片语的使用情境多半是说知道某事可能不会成功，但仍然尝试去做。像 Emma decided to try her luck in Hollywood. Emma 决定到好莱坞碰碰运气，看看能不能闯出名堂。那么以上是今天重点整理，我们来回顾今天单字吧。
Carve. Michelangelo's David, which is carved from marble, is one of the world's most famous works of art. Gaze. Rachel found the painting beautiful and gazed at it for a long time. Fascinate. The children were fascinated by the countless ants that crawled along the tree trunk. Legend. The book told a legend of a marvelous treasure buried on a distant island. Nevertheless. Alicia is not a big fan of musicals, but she enjoyed the show nevertheless.
Well, everyone, today's article has come to an end, and I sure hope you enjoy reading along with us. I am Helen.
I am Roger.
See you next time.